Project Management and Special Events, and also the staff liaison for diversity and inclusion and our Women in Business Council that we have at the Chamber. So we're very happy to introduce Brian. As you mentioned earlier, he is the new Diversity and Inclusion Chair. So welcome him. He just had his first staff meeting as the chair just last week. So we're doing great things with the program, lots of new and exciting things coming our way that we're putting in force to actually help the community and get the community involved with the Chamber. And then we also have Dennis Strader, who is our vice chair for a second term in a row. So thank you, Dennis. Dennis was the chair from 2017, and then we re-voted him in just this month as well. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Mark. Thank you so much. And I just want to thank all of you for coming and for giving us this wonderful presentation today and joining us. Thank you. Thank you, Mitzi.
And I'm Mark Smith from Photosmith, Colorado, also vice chair of the Arts Plus Business Connection, and also filling in for Renee Leon, who's taking a well-deserved vacation after, of sorts locally. We're happy to give her some rest because she's been hard at work with our sort of new format on it. So what is that new format? Just to maybe share a little bit about that. The key word, I think, in the Arts Plus Business Connection, and what I'd like you to think about today as we hear our two speakers chat is unlikely but appropriate connections. And that's come about in a couple of different ways, and we've been learning as we go along what might be some unlikely but appropriate connections. What we found in the realm of our people who have been giving their stories is that we've had a plumber who has used the small a, aka creativity, in his business. And certainly there's the large A, that which people have produced. But also it's special for me to partner with diversity and inclusion, because another hat I wear just to keep my head warm and keep me busy is I teach humanities, which also talks about people connections. So, what are some unlikely but appropriate connections in people? I don't know how many, one thing I like to share, if ever asked, what's one thing that people probably wouldn't expect about you, I'm related to Barack Obama. On it. So, interesting on that. It's interesting the reactions I get. I think sometimes people, I either get like, oh, that's really cool, or, kind of a look to me.
What is your relation, Mark?
It's, oh, my sister does all this. It's on his mother's side, and it goes back to, I think, 18th or 17th century, no, 18th century Germany. Where there's some grandfather, wow. But that's another story for another day. But yeah,
very cool.
Another unexpected connection today is that I have. I don't know if Daniel remembers that we worked together at Community College of Aurora for a while in years past. And certainly my connection with our first speaker, Marcel Narucki, some unexpected things about him. I was on the call committee that when he was a pastor, when he was hired as a pastor for a church I attended. And, I'm like, Marcel, is that French? Marcel, like Marcel, whatever. Narucki, that sounds sort of Japanese, but I'm going to let him share some unexpected or unlikely but appropriate connections in that realm. Interesting thing about Marcel is the director of Multi-Faith Services and co-founder of the Village Exchange Center. And the Multi-Faith Services, this has got sort of realized by me when there was a Evangelical Lutheran Church of America was a predominantly white church, was seeing a decline in membership at 16th and Havana. Surprise, and all of a sudden we were slowly being introduced through our community work to different faiths within that. And then certainly as our membership declined, we started inviting in other people to worship when we weren't there. So there, certainly there was the expected connections with the Hispanic community, but also we had a Mara culture. Mara, where the heck are they from? Myanmar, who? Burma. I think I know where that's at. And now more recently, the Kachin, which Marcel will chat about. There was a Nepalese congregation that came in and worshiped right after us that I think is still worshiping there. And then a Congolese group that is there as well. So certainly then it stands to reason that before that, as pastor of St. Matthew, Marcel and I worked together a lot. And how do we make this transition? Well, first, what do we do? And then he and his daughter came up with this wonderful idea, especially given the political climate in the moment, of coming up with a refugee center at 16th and Havana, which was just so appropriate on it. And then how to make that work and how to transition from one and the other. And I think he's going to speak a little bit about that. Prior to that, he was an instructor in a post-secondary scenario at New Mexico. And in order to get in as being a pastor for an ELCA church, he had to come up with a new master's degree, and he's got another master's degree from his time as a Catholic monk at Big Sur in California. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce Marcel Narucki.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's such a wonderful group gathered here. Thank you for having me and allowing me to represent the Village Exchange Center to share with you some of the ways creativity and inclusivity are critical dimensions to our work and vision. The process of
Sorry about that. Go ahead, Marcel.
No, go ahead, Mitzi. Why don't you go ahead and show that, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Smooth.
Well,
Can everybody see?
no.
Okay, let me try that again. See that now?
Yes. But no sound. Great, thank you, Mitzi. Even though VEC is not a religious institution, we were intentional about being a safe space for the expression and celebration of all faiths, because faith for many of the communities we serve is a source of identity, strength, and resilience. So we've had Muslim events, Ramadan events, Buddhist events, Hindu events. And as Mark mentioned, we have churches who worship at the center on Sunday, the Congolese, Nepali, and Kachin. And what you just saw was the Congolese congregation singing. And for me, and no doubt for other English-only folks, exposure and encounter with the cultural other can come through very powerfully through music and dance. And so it is with the congregations at VEC. Just a little bit about the Congolese. When they were first invited to share their music and dance, they were shy. Maybe shy is not the word, but they were reluctant in a reasoned way, because for them, their song and dance was obviously deeply personal, but it's also it's worship. And so for them, it's more than just cultural sharing. So at first they were very shy to share in contexts outside of worship. But after some discussions, they realized that sharing is also a way, and this was important to them, to share the gospel. And if you could sit for a while they sing and dance, even if you don't know the words, if you look at their faces, caught up in prayer, it's very, very beautiful and very powerful and very communicative. So they're at a point now in relationships outside their community with others that they're eager to share their song and dance. And the Congolese are particularly catchy. I mean, their music is just very beautiful. I wanted to share with you kind of something that happened with the Kachin church and the Kachin pastor, with Pastor James, or Pastor Bach is his name. He's a gentleman, a good man, a beautiful man, diligent in his pastorship, serving his community. Just over a year ago, he told me, he says, you know, 8 years ago, I was living naked in the jungle. And I was rather blown away at that. The cultural distance he had traveled and the strength of his person through that journey. And as we were preparing for our last anniversary celebration, unsolicited, Pastor James approached me and said, we would like to dance for everyone at the anniversary event. And I was thrilled. I was delighted to be asked, because it meant that Pastor James and the Kachin community felt confident in who they are within their sense of belonging, to want to show and share themselves. And what fuller way, again, than through song and dance. And so, to everyone's pleasure, the Kachin women performed in wonderfully expressive color, movement, and joy. But let me back up and just say a few words about VEC and what we do. I'm not going to go into everything. What Mark shared with you, the process of creating VEC, was just a little bit over 3 years ago. And that in itself was a creative process, because St. Matthew was looking to survive and hopefully rebirth through a new engagement. And so what that meant was taking serious, well, what do we do? Well, we have to be, and this is part of creativity, being responsive to the materials at hand. And what we were responsive to was our neighborhood, which was largely refugees and immigrants. What do we do? So that's how the community center was born. Because I'm a pastor and I can't help myself, I just want to say a word about that process of creating the Village Exchange Center. there was an uncanny convergence of alignments with people and support. And as I said, it was uncanny the way things would gather and unite to create a presence and power in the world. And Carl Jung calls this synchronicity. And it happens most notably when we're engaged to serve the well-being of others. And it's something we might have a hint of when we're in the midst of it, but most commonly it's something that sinks in after the fact that you see afterwards. So for me, I have to say the creative journey in the birth of VEC had a definite quality of synchronicity. But that's also, I'm thinking what I need to say, that doesn't mean there isn't setbacks and difficulties. It means that there's a certain downstreamness, an alignment of resources and people making for critical mass and momentum. So the Village Exchange Center is a nonprofit organization to serve refugees and immigrants and the neighborhood. We are a one-stop shop supporting integration, engagement, empowerment of local and foreign-born communities. And we approach this work by co-locating programs, services, cultural activities. We run ourselves multiple programs. We have a food pantry, youth and adult leadership training, an after-school program. In recent months, we've begun a program called Village Farms, where we bridge community silos between various social, economic communities in Northwest Aurora and Northeast Denver through growing food, cooking, eating, and celebrating cultural diversity through food and agricultural practices. And we're also rolling out the Village Theater, which is a collaborative, and this is where, obviously, this is where creativity is being explicit. It's a program which utilizes the performing arts to make available to our refugee and immigrant and local community space for expression, encounter, and training in the performing arts. Trying to look at the order of things happening here.
Marcel, would you like me to show the photos of the farm?
Mural? Yes, please.
Oh, the mural. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Let me share this. This is a lovely piece. Everyone see that?
So right now I'm working on a portrait at the Village Exchange Center. This portrait is of one of the kids that frequents this facility, and basically we wanted to have something on the walls that when people walk in, it feels really inclusive, it feels really open, and it's like aspirational. And for me, it's kind of like I definitely love to see, you know, just like almost kind of like a distribution of like the activities that happen here, some of the programs. I was here like late last night and saw some Congolese dancers, so really it's kind of like seeing a lot of culture and seeing a lot of just activities that I don't normally see. I wish that would be more, I guess, accessible to people in the community. So hopefully, you know, they have an opportunity to kind of share what they have come across and built with the larger public.
Hello, welcome back to the Captain's Quarters. Last week was an exciting one here.
Are we back?
Yes, is that it, Mitzi?
That was that piece.
Okay, good, good. So we knew from the very conception of VEC that we would have to create and nurture a culture of belonging where folks felt welcomed and were valued participants and contributors. And so when you enter the building, on the large wall to the left facing the large gathering space, there's the mural you saw that Thomas Evans painted. And it's of a young girl, arms lifted and outstretched with open hands. And above her, left and right, are two statements. One, I am powerful, and two, I belong. The background of the mural are outlines of the world's continents. What this mural captures and expresses through art is obviously more than can be communicated through text or saying, as is true of all art. And this mural communicates and shows welcome. It's a girl and it's a young person, unfortunately among the more vulnerable in our culture. And she's the one who is welcoming and representing unity. And her power as a person in the world, I am powerful, I belong, comes through belonging and is characterized by belonging. And now the girl who modeled for the mural is one of our after-school kids who lives across the street. Jackie was born here and her family are refugees from Congo. The fact that she is the symbolic subject of the mural has obviously given her a stakeholding and a sense of belonging to the community center. When she's casually introduced to people, she'll often say, I'm the mural girl. I believe the mural has also given a sense of ownership to the other kids because it's one of them. A number of times I've seen kids proudly and enthusiastically identify to newcomers who's in the mural. And that's a beautiful and powerful thing to witness. We have another Congolese young person, I'm changing his name, Asa, who attends the after-school program. And here I would like to just pause a moment and thank the leadership Aurora for being involved with us. And I'm doing that here because we have our after-school program in the basement, and the basement is it's not as big as upstairs, which was the worship space, but it's a very important space because it's a space for gathering, but it's smaller and more intimate. And we have our classes down there and lots of gathering, but it's kind of been neglected. So thanks to leadership Aurora, that space has been made beautiful. And that's really important because when we create beauty in our spaces, that gives dignity to all the participants. So I have to say the downstairs was looking kind of ratty, but now it looks pretty good. And thanks to leadership Aurora, we're helping give the people who are down there some dignity. Thank you. This young person, Asa, faces many challenges. He does not have immediate family, but he lives with relatives. His English is poor. As you might imagine, fitting in and being a full social participant is a challenge. The things we do in the after-school program is tutoring, arts and crafts, cooking, and sports. Well, in one of our art and craft sessions, Asa decided independently, without any prompt, that he wanted to draw the Congolese flag. No surprise there. But in subsequent sessions, he continued on with the flags of other African countries. He knew some, the others we looked up with him. But then through the weeks, he kept asking for other countries beyond Africa. So what is it you want to do? He said, I'm doing the whole world. And he did. He did the whole world. On 2 full walls downstairs where we do the after-school day hunt. Now, I'm not a psychologist, and maybe someone here can help interpret, but it seems to me at least one of the important things going on here with Asa through the work of his hands was he was locating himself in the world. Having a context of belonging to the whole diversified unity that is the world situates you and makes yourself somewhat comprehensible to yourself. Especially for a young person who has been lifted out of their familiar culture and sadly enough, in too many instances, under violent circumstances, and is now struggling to be part of the new foreign culture. I can report Asa was hired to help in our summer camp and has come a long way in so many ways. But, you know, those of you involved with kids, and I don't know how it happens, but some kids get under your skin. Asa's one of them. He's still very vulnerable, but we're doing what we can.
Thank you, Marcel.
Thank you. Let's see, what's next here? Were you going to, Mitzi, can you show the farms?
I would love to show the farms because
Okay.
they're delightful pictures. And if you want to talk over them, that's fine. You can talk a little bit about the project.
So we just started the farms and we kind of sped up the rollout because with COVID, we could safely do it outside. And we wanted to do a summer camp. And this was a way for us to be outside with the summer camp. So you'll see a lot of kids here. So this is in partnership with Stanley Farms. And it's a way to bring community together, as I mentioned earlier, through agricultural practices and different foods and different ways of cooking. That's still forthcoming because right now is just growing for the first time. But in our summer camp with the kids, what we did is we introduced them to farming, and we had sports, and it went really well. That's a pumpkin patch.
Delightful photos. Thank you.
So let me just conclude by saying, as I was reflecting on, it was great to do this exercise for me because we're being creative all the time and it becomes a little bit explicit, but when you do something like we're doing here today, it becomes very explicit. And it made me think how all creativity involves an engagement somewhere along the human spectrum of desire, from satisfying basic needs to our highest potentials and aspirations. And I was thinking how inclusivity is intrinsic to the creative act, to all creative acts. A certain gathering and unification happens in the creative act, a gathering of the individual person, of his or her energies and resources through intent, a gathering of persons working together in creativity, joining energies and resources toward a person. And finally, whether it be a work of art or an organization or a meal or anything that is the fruit of creative engagement, there's a presentation and an invitation to those outside to witness something and to share something. So thank you for allowing me to be here with you today, because this is what you guys are all about. And it's a great pleasure to be here with you. If we have any questions or thoughts.
We have some time at the end, I believe, for some questions.
Okay.
Unless
Okay.
somebody has some burning questions right now. But thank you, Marcel.
Thank you.
That was really inspiring. Now I would like to introduce our next speaker, Tariana Navas-Nieves, who is the Director of Cultural Affairs for Denver Arts and Venues, City and County of Denver. She's going to talk about her organization and their take on creativity in the arts and how it promotes diversity and inclusion. So welcome, Tariana, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. And I have to first say thank you to Marcel. I'm familiar with the village, but certainly I had not heard you speak about it, and you have a new fan. I loved this. It's hard to follow, right? So thanks a lot for that. It was a wonderful way to start my Friday, and I wanted to definitely, I think it's a good segue to what I'll be talking about. So I will connect I'll make connections to what you spoke about in terms of a sense of belonging and creating a safe space and what culture really means. So before I do that, just a very quick for context of the work I do in the city. As Mitzi said, I'm the Director of Cultural Affairs for Denver Arts and Venues, which we are the local art agency. And we operate as a social and cultural enterprise. And what does that mean in terms of the City and County of Denver work is we're not part of the general fund, and we own and operate 5 different venues. The Red Rocks Amphitheater, Park and Amphitheater, the Colorado Convention Center, the Denver Coliseum, the Performing Arts Complex in the McNichols building in Civic Center Park. And those venues serve as our enterprising mechanism, which allows us to bring dollars to sustain ourselves in terms of our staff, all of our maintenance, which takes quite a bit when you have that size of venues, and then really to fulfill our shared purpose, which is investment in community, our cultural investments in communities. And currently, as you can imagine, we've all been hit really hard with COVID. So we are in a process of really reimagining what this new reality, hopefully temporary, means to us in terms of still fulfilling our cultural mission and remaining protective of our assets, which are our venues. So in that space, I also am proud to share that we were the first agency in the city. This happened maybe 6 years ago to look at equity as very much part of the work that we do. And we were the first city agency to have an actual work plan to operationalize diversity, equity, and inclusion, and became a model for the city. 2 years ago at the State of the City address, the Mayor Michael B. Hancock announced his equity platform and race and social justice initiative, and he opened an office, the Office of Equity and Social Innovation. And now there is an office that is focused on training and changing government processes and work through an equity perspective across the 15,000 employees. So there is a group of 3 colleagues, including myself, that we work with the mayor as his equity leadership team, overseeing all equity work throughout the city. So in that space, I also have the opportunity to do what I've done my entire professional career, which is really lead within an equity perspective. So with that in mind, I was so happy to hear Marcel talk about the perspective of what culture and what art means when you're really creating a space of belonging. So when I think about culture, I'm not just thinking about, let's say, visual arts or performing arts. I'm thinking about culture as a way in which communities gather, right? In which families in different cultures choose to raise their children, is language, is food. And I think Marcel has done a phenomenal job and his team in creating that space of culture and human connection. And I love the term sovereignty of culture, which really means that it's not our job. We have the tendency in this country that when we think about arts and culture, we think about it from a Eurocentric perspective, which is very much part of the history, right, of our country, and really lose sight of the fact that there is arts and culture in every community in the world. And the term sovereignty of culture is that it's not up to us to define what culture is, but it's up to every community to define what culture is to them. And I think Marcel has done such a lovely and phenomenal work in terms of embracing that concept and really allowing for communities to live their own culture in a way that in this space, through the examples that he shared with us today, it's about worship, it's about food, it's about farming, it's about music. And that is very much what creative and inclusive environment is about, right? Creating that sense of belonging. So I'm going to share today very quick, and I'll just go through it very quickly just to give you a sense of when I think about storytelling and when I think about what it means to bring that equity lens into an arts and culture into community, what that looks like. So I'm going to share my screen. Are you seeing my screen right now? Perfect. Okay. So very quickly. So we, again, as a social and cultural enterprise, we bring dollars through, if you have had the opportunity to go to Red Rocks and purchase a ticket and maybe went to concessions and bought refreshments, those dollars really come into our agency. And then a big part of that, then we invest in community. So our equity, diversity, and inclusion grants are a partnership between the Denver Arts and Venues and the Office of Human Rights and Community Partnerships Commissions. These commissions are groups appointed by the mayor, and they are all community groups that are representative of larger communities in the city and county of Denver. And you see here, they're all representative of historically marginalized communities that, again, from the African American Commission, American Indian Commission, the Immigrant and Refugee Commission, connecting to Marcel's work, and many others. And as a funder, we acknowledge that our space in philanthropy, right, our space in investing dollars in communities is very much, has very much built in a power structure, which really means that we as the funders own great power and privilege. And then we often, as part of a philanthropic system, many approach this work as helicoptering in and putting dollars in, and then in a way curating how those dollars should be spent. So we, through this program, we really decided to challenge the philanthropic model. And the program, what it is we actually have allocated $3,000 per commission starting in 2019 and this year. And we have gone to these commissions. And by the way, these are commissions that we've been building relationships for years now. And I want to underscore the key importance of that. Because I think when people use the word partnership, it is so easy to say we're going to partner with an organization to bring diversity, equity, and inclusion. And is this that becomes in a way transactional work that is very time focused, right? Is you come in, you plan a great program, and then you leave. And that's not what relationship building is all about. So we've spent years really learning about the commissions, being part of their meetings, learning about what their communities really look like. And then we came and we said, you know, we have $3,000 and we need you to tell us, how would you invest these dollars in your community? And here I'll talk very briefly about the benefits and the challenges, right? The benefits were and have been that it really has allowed for us to build a sustainable relationship through many years. It allows us to really challenge the philanthropic model, and us as leaders, I think is critical that we actually lead by example and really look at what does it mean to actually have a participatory decision making in terms of what investments look like. Now the challenges, again, as I said, there's an existing power dynamic that when what we experience, even though that we had a relationship with these groups and these communities, when we said, we're giving you money, you tell us how you want to make decisions and how you want to invest them. There was this sense of surprise and also looking back at us and saying, okay, repeat that. What exactly do you want us to do? And tell us, so what are the guidelines? How can we make, how can we invest these dollars? And I would go back and say, no, you're telling me, I'm stepping back. I'm here to support you in any way that you need, but you are telling me, right? You are educating me in what it means for your community to make investment decisions. And you're gonna tell me also what arts and culture means to you in terms of how you best want to support arts and culture and creativity in your community. And so that again took some time. And as you can imagine, what happened is that every single commission had a completely different way of making decisions, right? Which in terms of challenges, it meant that you have to obviously have the understanding that it's going to take time, because again, every single one of those 10 different commissions did it differently. And it also means that you are, as a funder, you're so used to making decisions that you really have to take a step back and be humble and just be a learner. So in 2018, and these are the few examples that I'll talk about, is basically different commissions decided to do it in different ways. Some commissions decided to use the totality of the funds and invest it in one project. Other groups decided to make a number of different mini investments in different programs and projects. So again, there were those that decided to spread the love. And this is just very quickly, again, the Asian American Pacific Islander Commission decided to give $500 to many different groups and projects. The Immigrant and Refugee Commission decided to do 2 different programs. And again, these are programs that were developed and designed by community. And we were just there to learn and really facilitate. So family, if you're not familiar with family, I encourage you to learn about them. This is one of just a handful of arts, performing arts organizations in the country that are focused on people with disabilities. And these are all, right, the broad spectrum of disabilities, from those visible disabilities to those more invisible disabilities. I am the mother of a young man in the autism spectrum. So as a mother, I can certainly relate to those kind of invisible disabilities. So in this case, they had a long rehearsal program, and this became the seed money for a concession stand. So this creators and these performers could focus on their work. And as you can imagine, also there are extra challenges in terms of moving and planning when you have a group of people with disabilities. So this really became a great space for them to create something that was sustainable, that they could pilot and then continue as an organization. Just to give you a sense of other projects, Imagine ASL Performing Arts. This is a performing arts group and theater group that brings together deaf people with actually people that are hearing, and just bringing again those different cultures together, and they're the ones leading this space. Spoken motion again is dance for people with a different with a broad spectrum of disability, and Access Gallery is an organization that is close and dear to my heart, is focused on visual arts. But the great thing is that they actually looked not just at supporting youth in terms of creating art, but really looking at employment development. As you know, there is a huge percentage of unemployment for people with disabilities. So they really tackle this. And all of these dollars really came to these organizations to address their core mission and programming. So the Immigrant and Refugee Commission, they decided to invest in a beautiful talent show that really celebrated bringing community of first-generation college graduates to inspire and support the next first-generation college-bound. So it was such a lovely connectivity of youth led by them, because they were the ones that designed the entire program. And I think what was so critical is that the outcome, which was that talent show, really was as important as the process, right? The process of bringing this youth together and really becoming, in a way, is that those first generation college graduates, they became leaders in their communities. And then they became leaders of this next generation of youth. And again, it was a beautiful thing to see, and a beautiful thing for, again, for us as learners to step back and really see how magic happens through arts and culture. For the Immigrant and Refugee Commission's other project, and I think this is something that Marcel in a way mentioned, they had the design this exhibit. It was called Mementos from Home. And as you can imagine, every single person in this project had something very, very personal and unique that they had brought with them from their mother country, right? And this was a way for them to process trauma. This was a way for them to heal. This was a way for them to feel safe and at home and create community in their new, right, living space. And they each brought those mementos, and these are again a few of the quotes, which I think again, it doesn't do it justice when I describe it, but just to hear from them I'm happy to share this moment with you. It's a pleasure to share because in Morocco, people aren't closed off. You find people in the streets, in the mosque, and we talk, we discuss things. We're used to people, to the presence of people. And again, that speaks to that gathering, right? That the biological need, right, of people to connect, especially when they are away from their mother country, and how important and critical is for them to actually connect with others that have actually experienced something similar. And this is from Jorge. I thank you for doing this project, and that's because I believe that for many of us, it's important to share the few things we have been able to bring from our countries that remind us of our countries, that in some way connect us to what we are so that we never forget, even though that we live over here. And I think it is a very special project and gives us the opportunity to share a little piece of what our country was and how we lived and how we felt. So thank you. And again, if that is not success, I don't know, especially as funders, there is this thing as final reports. These are our final reports, right? This is a way in which, I get goosebumps talking about this, and this happened in 2018, right? So for me, this was the most just, phenomenal way of hearing a successful final report. The Asian American Pacific Islander Commission, we talk about what culture is. Food is culture. When family comes together to prepare food, to share a meal, that is culture. And what was really special about this project as well is that you had the very traditional, again, connectivity through food, and then they used social media to actually share those stories. And what happened was that all of these different culture sharers, all of a sudden they felt connected, they felt seen, and they started sharing recipes, they started sharing stories of home. And again, it became something that really was about sharing that human connection. Then also they invested in some other very, again, small projects that were, again, very much driven by and for community. A poetry workshop, a conference that was actually about very close to that immigrant and refugee conference, which was about bringing youth together and creating a space for exchange. And then also, how do you create a platform where that culture is elevated? So there was also an investment on a digital and print anthology to share literature in our community. And then there were others that decided to use their dollars to invest, again, with bigger, larger grants. The Commission on Aging, actually, if you know the history of global Illyria Swansea, you know that it's a story of transformation, it's a story of ownership, and then really transformation in terms of gentrification, in terms of shifts of ownership of people's livelihoods, of people's homes. So they brought together older adults and recorded and captured the history of the neighborhood through their voices. And in a way that has become, when you talk about history, right? And when we talk about what it means to rewrite history, these are histories of community, of place, led and told by the people who actually found a way, belonging in this community. The Latino Commission decided to provide scholarships for youth to attend this nationally renowned Creative Industries, Arts and Media Camp at CU, Denver. And these are summer programs that are very much tied, again, arts and culture, but in terms of future potential careers. And a lot of our youth in the Latino community do not have access to these opportunities. So, and these are where they brought national leaders. They brought people that work at Walt Disney, in Hollywood studios. So a number of youth, Latino youth, were able to participate in this summer program. and which is connected to the University of Colorado. So they were already making connections for potential opportunities to follow this career path, and even perhaps have an opportunity to join the university program. The LGBTQ Commission actually worked with the Denver Men Gays Chorus and decided to address and pay homage to those in the LGBTQ community that have either been experiencing homelessness or have died on the streets. And this, as you know, is a huge challenge of the LGBTQ community, and it really has hit youth in tremendous numbers. So they created a concert to bring people together, to bring families together that have lost those that family members that have either again are experiencing homelessness or have died on the streets due to the challenges of homelessness. And then the Women's Commission actually worked with Adri Norris, who is a Denver artist, and she developed this whole series of cards. She actually had created one that her first series was focused on just women in history, just national history, that are of color, that really have become role models for young women. And she created this series on women in Denver, women of color in Denver that have actually that are actually role models for young women. And they use these cards to actually bring young women together and talk about history, and talk about how they can actually develop a sense of develop self-confidence, self-worth, and really aspire to grow. And I think Marcel talked about that sense of pride, right? Of being seen, of saying, I'm the girl in the mural, right? So this, I think, is the power of art, to be able to say, oh, she looks like me. In the case of Marcel, it's like, that is me, right? So in this case, it's really about, using arts and culture and creativity to instill that sense of pride. So with that, I just, I'll stop sharing, but just wanted again to share that I think as much as these communities were benefited through this these are small financial investments. And as I talk to a group of you who are business leaders, I want to underscore the importance of, when you think about what it means to connect with community, it doesn't necessarily mean a lot of dollars, right? It really means about making a commitment to, again, building those relationships and letting community lead. And I think through the examples I've shared, through the stories I've shared, that Marcel has shared, it's really about how we as ones that potentially could make choices, investment choices in communities, how critical is that we become the learners, right? That we become those that must follow rather than lead. And again, it's just great to be here to share this space with Marcel. I've learned so much about your stories, Marcel, and it's great to be sharing this, share stories of change for me also as a human, and how they've made me a better human through the work that I do. So thank you.
Thank you, Tariana.
Thank you both so much. That was, both presentations were incredible. I would like to open it up to any questions. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question. I would love to have all three, Mark, Marcel, I, and Tariana, sit for an interview for our community broadcasting network. Let me just tell you a little bit about what we're doing. As the vice chair of the D&I Council, I was hearing so many wonderful stories about how companies and organizations are implementing diversity, equity, and inclusion in their operations. And as an old broadcaster from years ago, I decided to kind of pay it forward. So I created the Our Community Broadcasting Network as a way to showcase what these companies and organizations are doing. And so I basically do, let's say, roughly 10-minute, fully edited interviews over Zoom in order to promote what you guys are doing, okay, as an organization. And then you get to embed that in on your website or e-newsletter. And it's a way of cross-promoting all these other organizations. Yesterday, as an example, I did a wonderful interview with the CU College of Nursing, where they did a March for Social Justice in June. And we talked about why they did that, but also what are you doing going forward? How is this going to make the school better, more inclusive, and have equity in learning? These are the types of things. So I'm going to, on the chat, I'm going to put my website up so you guys could go and view and see the kind of things we're doing. And I invite any and all to get in touch with me, share a story, and see if we can, again, do the type of interview that can promote your organization and also cross-promote other organizations. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I would just like to say this has been absolutely enlightening to me. It's, things that go on across the world you're just not familiar with. It's just enlightening, refreshing, and I just thank you for all the service that you're doing. Marcel, you had a picture that you put up earlier with the, it's not a garden. What was, a garden would be very small, right? Which, by the way, I'd love to have some help with in my backyard because yours looks amazing. Where was that?
That was at Stanley Farms.
Stanley Marketplace.
Yeah.
Oh, here.
I'm sorry, Stanley Marketplace, correct. Yeah, so they gave us, we entered into a 20-year agreement with them. They gave us a few acres at the edge of the property.
Saw that when we went back there. Is it kind of behind the building to the right?
Yeah.
On the right? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. You do some great things in the community. Thank you so much.
And some of the restaurants are committed to use the food grown there. So it's a good partnership.
I have to get with you on some tips next year when we get ready to plant our garden.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't be the one, but I can connect you with people who do.
Okay. Thank you so much. And thank you all that presented. I appreciate everything that you guys did. It's really, really enlightening information.
One thing I forgot to mention as I introduced Marcel is he gives really good hugs. So when the pandemic's over and you see him, he's a great hugger, and I miss those.
Well, stand in line.
But thank you to both Marcel and Tariana for presenting today. Again, this I teach humanities and what is and I travel internationally except for this year, right? but one of the joys is finding that connection a half a world away. So the joy of being in Aurora is that sometimes I don't have to go a half a world away to see that same connection here. So any announcements that people have on upcoming events or anything you want to share from your group?
If I may, I think the last thing I would want to, invite the group is that obviously we focus today on programs, we focus today on the work that we do. But I think as businesses, as leaders of your organizations, I would again, I'm thrilled that you are looking at the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of how you connect with community. And I would invite you to look at what that means for each one of your businesses and organizations, right? To look inward, because I think we can do storytelling all day long, right? And it's incredibly inspiring. And I think what I would encourage you and invite you is to, which many of you I'm sure are already doing, but what does it mean for you as a business and as an organization to live those values of equity within your organization? What does it mean to your recruitment? What does it mean to how you conduct business? What does it mean to, when you make decisions? What does it mean to make, to making budgetary decisions, especially during times of crisis? So I invite you and encourage you to self-examine. I think equity work is about outcomes. So I invite you to spend time on self-examination as humans and as business leaders. And last week, and this is an ongoing series, so I invite you to participate, and I'm glad to share with Mitzi. I can send it to her, the link, but we conducted a session last week called How to Be an Anti-Racist Organization. And it's really focused on what it means to live those values, right? We had actually close to 1,000 people registered from all over the United States. And this was, even though that we lead in arts and culture, this was real estate, health, education, again, from all over the United States. And it's really focused on what it means when you actually make a choice and a commitment to living these values. What does it mean in terms of your organization, and what it means to not just show, commitment and make a statement of solidarity, but really to transform the way we all, work. So we recorded the session, and there's also a session called EDI 101. We have it on our website, so I'll send it with Mitzi and she can share it with the team. But I invite you to listen to those, to share with your constituents, with your membership. And then this will be a monthly series. The next one is in September. So I invite you to join us in doing the difficult, challenging, and very imperfect work that is equity work. And I say imperfect because it's definitely, there is urgency, but we cannot rush this. And it's going to take all of us to do it, and in a very imperfect way. So just wanted to close with that.
Tariana, are you able to put that in the chat too?
Oh,
as well as
yes.
send it to me, because then people can access it right now. That would be
Yep.
great.
Happy to do so.
Me
So I
closing
have
comments?
2 words. Perfect timing, Tariana. We, for our diversity and inclusion, this year, our theme, we're looking at a better life, a better living. And part of that is going to be exactly what you just spoke of, looking at housing, mentorship, social justice, everything that you just mentioned. So I would really enjoy the opportunity to speak with you. We're also looking at offering, or providing, I should say, videos, which you said that you have, for our members on this, because we want to get more involved. Right now we're, doing presentations every month, but we're trying to spice it up a little bit and add more resources to our community, not just to the members, but to our community. So starting off, we're going to start off in October with mentorship. And under that mentorship, it's going to look like everything from workforce, community, housing, home ownership, rent control, social justice, allied partnerships, public health, engaging with policymakers. So that totally fits in with what we're looking at. So if you could, Mitzi, if you wouldn't mind forwarding, I don't think that I have your email address, but if Mitzi could send you mine or just CC me on an email, that would be really awesome so we can get together. And anybody else that has any ideas along those lines of what we're looking at doing, you're all more than welcome to join our Diversity and Inclusion Council which meets every, well, now we're doing it bi-monthly. So our first bi-monthly meeting will start October for the council at 9 a.m. for about an hour and a half. But in between those months where we're not actually meeting, we want to provide them a video of things of what you just mentioned, Tariana.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, and again, these sessions are very focused on tactical, actionable things, right?
Yeah.
So the goal is that you will leave with something tangible that you can actually go back to your organization and do.
Yeah. And maybe even spread throughout the organization for, you know, others to view. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Leanne. Could I jump in here real quickly? Mitzi or Dee Dee, is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, everyone. This information, Tariana, Marcel, has been amazing. So thank you so much. Census has been able to partner with VEC quite a bit in the last 2 years, and so we appreciate that. I do want to remind everyone that since the time for completing the census has been cut short, we are nearing the end very rapidly. September 30th will be the last day that there will be anyone in the field. It'll be the last day, or at least that non-response will be in the field. We'll still have quality out. And it will be the last day that anyone can complete the census survey online or by phone. And so if everyone here could just spread the word to all of their contacts that it's not too late, someone can still respond online at 2020census.gov or by phone at 844-330-2020, and I'll put that information in the chat. Also, for any of your organizations, we were just at Aurora Public Schools, Daniel, yesterday, and we're able to take thousands of census activity coloring books for like K1, K2. If there's, super excited by that, so I'm glad to see the snaps. If there's anything that any of you all would like us to do, I've got a little bit of swag, I've got flyers, we're down to the wire. So I'll put my contact information in there, reach out to me, and it's not too late. Thank you, Mitzi. Thank you, Dee Dee, for letting me.
Leanne, if you Pickens Tech is the only APS school that's going to have some in-person learning for this semester. So if you want to drop some stuff off, we'd be happy to distribute that to students that are coming on campus. And we have post-secondary and high school students.
Daniel, that's a great idea, and I have not done anything directly with them, so I will make that happen. Is there anyone I should copy to let them know I'm coming? If not, I'm not shy. You know, I will just show up.
If you drop them off at the front desk in Building A with Jennifer or Hope, you can just have them get it to me. We'll get it to the instructors there to pass out.
I will be more than happy to do that. I'll make it happen I'd say by Monday.
Great.
Well, thank you to everyone for being here. And most importantly, thank you to our guest speakers. I can't thank you enough. It was really wonderful information. And if anybody has any more questions, we're happy to take them. But I have really enjoyed this, and I hope everybody else has too.
No, thank you for having me, and Mitzi knows and Mark know where to find me. So if at any time I can be of support, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much.
And same here, and I look forward to connecting with some of you after this.
Okay.
Thank you all, and thank you to Mitzi. Thank you so much for
And
your
Renee, who is not here, but thank you to Renee and Mark. They're fabulous chairs, and you all stay safe and have a good weekend.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So Mark,
So Mitzi,
how you doing?
good, and you?
Good, good. All
Any
right. Well, you
thoughts?
Have a great weekend. I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us, Barbara.
All right, bye-bye.
I can't hear you, but
Thank you. It was my pleasure. I was so glad to listen in today. Thank you so very much.
they were fabulous. Take care. Good to see you.
You too. Good to see you too. Take care.